Okay, in this video, I want to show how we have transformed the accident of our cylinder getting broken at customs during inspection into a different way of configuring the zeAC, the zero electric air conditioner, and it still works. So the picture in front of us is how it should be. So we brought in this part, okay, the cylindrical part, which is a cooling part, and then it ended up in pieces, these pieces. So we have we then hydrated the it ended up in bigger bulky pieces than these. So we tried hydrating those and kept them in a room, and they were able to still keep a room at 77 degrees, but it was hard to hydrate them in that form. So what I've done is to break them up into smaller bits and place them in an aluminum tray and poured water into the aluminum tray. So there are two of them. You can see there's one here and the other one is on this side. Okay, and then in the middle, you can see I have in the middle I have this bigger tray that contains the plants, and you can see I have layered the material that the plants are inside, starting with sawdust to limit the weight of the material and allow water to percolate and sit at the bottom. And then I have added some mulch and then white sand on top of the mulch. So the white sand wicks the water up. And then at the very top, I crushed some of the cylinder material and made it into a powder and placed it on top of the white sand. So it becomes an evaporative media in this way, and it helps the plants as well to get nourished. And here is another tray. Okay, so it's very humid at the moment, and the aircon cylinder is mostly fighting humidity, which has resulted in a slight increase in temperature to 79 Fahrenheit. It is cooling a pretty large space. It's cooling a pretty large space for this small unit. Okay, all of this space is being cooled, including over there by this material here. Okay, and so currently the temperature of the room, it rained and it's hot outside. So it's very humid and it's very hot outside. So, and the temperature of the room is now 79. It has been 76, 77 all day. The most I saw today was 78. So obviously the condensation happening as a result of dehumidification is releasing heat energy into the environment and resulting in more condensation than evaporation. And I believe that is the reason why we have a slightly higher temperature. In the afternoon, when it was very hot, it was very cool. It was a 77, and the feeling that one got was a feeling of, very gentle breeze, like a very mild wind chill, and there was no sweating in the afternoon. And I can feel that the humidity is really bad, because even I just came outside now, and it's taking some time for my body to adjust. So I have a little bit of sweat on my head. But otherwise, the system has been cooling the whole space and keeping it at between 76 Fahrenheit, and as of today, after the rains, 79 Fahrenheit. But over the last several 2 days, I've observed temperatures between 76 and 78. Now let's take a look at the temperature of the material. So I'm going to check now to see. So the material is a 76. Sorry. The material is a 76. See, 7, 8. So it's doing a lot of condensation, which is responsible for the warmth of the material. Now, let's see how much. All right, so everything is warmer. Everything is warmer. So there's a lot of heat being generated by the condensation of vapor. All right, by the condensation of vapor for evaporation. I mean, condensation of vapor for dehumidification. So the dehumidification process is increasing the temperature of the material. Oh, hang on a minute. Okay, so that might not be right. The material is actually cold. The material is a 74. So it was a matter of the adjustment of the meter to the temperature of the object. 74. So how much? And our container is at 70, 77, 78. Our container is at 78. So the reason I have these aluminum containers is because the cooling is happening inside them, and that the heat that's been absorbed as a result of evaporation is being also absorbed from the water in this thing, and from the mass, and from the aluminum sheet. Now, the aluminum is able to transfer the coldness of this body into the air, because the aluminum cannot hold heat. It dissipates heat it releases heat very, very quickly. So the aluminum tends to be at the same temperature of the air, or close to the very temperature of air, because it loses heat to air very much. So it equalizes with the temperature of air very easily. So for me, the aluminum is a way of discharging the heat that is being generated as a result of the evaporation that's happening on the material. So the aluminum allows us to spread the heat out without a fan. So we end up with solid state cooling entirely. So the cooling process is happening without any kind of mechanical force, and the spreading of the heat coming out of the cooling process is happening without any kind of mechanical force, because we're using heat conductors to spread out the heat into the air. So air is drawn to this thing naturally because of its low vapor pressure, so, and its temperature as well, because heat moves from a place of high pressure to a place of low pressure. So both the vapor pressure and the convection is heading in the direction of the material, and any air that touches the material gets to cool down as well. So what I observed in the afternoon around 3, was that the material, this installation here, was also creating wind, subtle wind, because as it pulls air towards it, the air gets into motion, and the air pulls other air, and so there's a kind of motion of movement of air in this room that's occasioned by the presence of the material in the room. Okay, so I have adjusted to the room now. I'm feeling very cool. I'm feeling very cool, and I can, I'm beginning to feel that, that subtle wind chill that I talked about, where your body is feeling actually cooler than the temperature says. I noticed that this afternoon, and I'm feeling it again now, where my body is feeling cooler than the 79 that I'm seeing over there in the temperature. I'm feeling like 25, while the meter is saying 20 to 79. I feel like 75. I feel like 75, while the meter is 79. So how do we explain that? Well, because the air is drier because of the of the material. Okay, it's allowing evaporation to happen much more quickly on my skin, and because this thing is creating wind, slight and subtle wind, that subtle wind is facilitating evaporation on my skin, making me feel cooler. So it's dissipating the heat in my body more effectively because the humidity is lower and that there is wind inside an enclosed space. So this is my reconfiguration of the broken cylinder into an art installation that also cools the living room and the kitchen and the ground floor basically in this house.